International Resource Network. And I want to welcome everybody who's here at Brooklyn College. I want to welcome everybody who is in the Bahamas at the Hub. That's actually the name of the place, the Hub, and even though we've been calling the Hubs places that we are. And also to welcome everyone who is in Kingston, Jamaica, and at the fourth host site, which is in Mona at the University of the West Indies. Try to get rid of some of that soundtrack. So everybody hopefully knows why they're here, but just a lot of people don't know what the International Resource Network is. So just to tell you a little bit about that, and I'm going to speak very quickly so that we can get to the best parts of the evening, which are the other speakers who are here and at the other host sites. So the International Resource Network is a web-based program. It's based at the Center for Lesbian and Gay Studies, at which is CLAGS, at the City University of New York Graduate Center here in New York City. It's funded by the Ford Foundation, and it aims to link up researchers, activists, artists, and teachers in areas related to diverse sexualities and genders. The goals of the IRN are to expand knowledge building, to foster comparative and collaborative projects among researchers, to advance curricular and course development, and to widen the availability of scholarly resources. The regions of the IRN, in addition to the Caribbean region, are the Latin American region, which we often work very closely with, the Asia and Pacific region, the Africa region, the Middle East region, North America, and Europe. So that's the IRN in a nutshell. I can answer more questions about that later on. I need to give a number of thank yous, of course, to Lawrence Chang, who was the person who actually donated the physical archives to us, and to Thomas Glade, who, and I'll give more detailed introductions to him later, but Thomas Glade, who facilitated the relationship with Larry and getting us the archives. To Stephanie Harvey, who raised a hand, who's my graduate student of mine, who was the person who physically scanned in all of the documents, and who was also the person who lovingly placed each document into an acid-free, archival, safe, and rodent-proof folder, sleeve, and/or box. So we're very thankful to her for her time. We want to thank Marian Labato, who's a professional archivist who trained Stephanie to be able to do that work, and everyone in the Brooklyn College Division of Archives and Special Collections. We want to thank Dane Lewis in Kingston of JFLAG, the Jamaica Forum for Lesbians, All Sexuals, and Gays, who has organized the Kingston Jamaica Hub. We want to thank Mark Clifford of Pride in Action, who organized the UWI-Mona Hub, the University of the West Indies Hub in Mona, Jamaica. And we want to thank Aaron Green and Margot Bethel of the Nassau, Bahamas host site, where they're at the Hub, Gallery, and Community Center. So I want to thank all of them for their work. There are actually more people in the Caribbean watching this than there are in the room right now in Brooklyn, so it's very exciting. We also need to thank the people who funded Stephanie's work and putting all of this together, which is the Diversity Grant Program at the City University of New York, and the Africana Studies Department here at Brooklyn College through Professor George Cunningham. Finally, I want to thank the people who made the technology happen. Nicholas Irons, who is in the back here at Brooklyn College through the Academic Information Technologies Department here, and Vidyaratha Kissoon, who is the regional coordinator, who is in Guyana, and who is doing a lot of what you'll see up there. He's actually making that happen from Guyana. So make sure that you send good vibes, that the electricity doesn't go out in Guyana. All right? So there's one other thing that we'd like to do at the beginning of this moment. Those of you who are involved in this work in relationship to sexual minorities in the Caribbean know that Robert Carr passed away recently, just last month. And Robert Carr was a longtime human rights and HIV/AIDS activist. He was the founder of the Caribbean Vulnerable Communities Coalition, and he was former executive director of Jamaica AIDS Support. He passed away on May 11th, and we're just going to take a moment of silence to remember him because he was very much a part of the work that went into what we're going to be talking about tonight. So thank you to Robert Spirit, and thank you to all of you for coming. So our first speaker for this evening is going to talk a little bit about, he knows a lot about JFLAG and about the Jamaica Gay Freedom Movement, is Thomas Glade. And Thomas Glade is a lot of things. He is a creative writer. He's the author of a book of short stories called The Torturer's Wife. And you can find his short stories in many places, and I believe a novel is forthcoming at some point. So we're looking forward to reading that. He's also an intellectual and a nonfiction writer. He's the author of the book Words to Our Now, and he's the editor of the collection Our Caribbean. Excuse me. And he also has another book, I believe, of essays forthcoming. So there's a lot of exciting work from Thomas. And he is an activist. He's a co-founder of the Jamaica Forum for Lesbians, Allsexuals, and Gays in Jamaica. So, Thomas.
Should I come up there?
If you can come up here, because the computer camera is the one that will be beaming you to the Caribbean.
Okay.
And one more housekeeping announcement for the people in Brooklyn. There is a film crew here, actually from French television, that's doing a documentary on asylees from the Caribbean in the diaspora. If there's anyone who does not want to be filmed as part of that documentary, please raise your hand so they can make sure not to film your face. The crew will not be filming the people in the region, with the exception of Colin, who knows that he'll be filmed. Thank you.
Where should I look?
Look at the green.
Oh, there. Hi. Hi, everyone in the Caribbean. Hi, everyone everywhere.
And you're taller than me. There we go.
Okay. Hopefully you're all see me, and hi, everybody here at Brooklyn College. And I want to say special thanks again. Said thanks earlier to Rosamond and Angelique, and to Larry, and to everybody who made it possible for us to come together today to do this event. It really means a great deal. And particularly, I know, with all the different schedules that people have, it's not easy to get together. So I'm going to speak briefly about some things that Larry and I were just speaking about a few minutes ago, which is the history of the gay freedom movement, or rather perhaps even more significantly right now, its centrality in terms of the archives. As some of you know, and those of you watching may know, Larry in the late 1970s in Jamaica founded the gay freedom movement and did an enormous amount of work. An enormous amount of history was made in that work. An enormous amount of social change happened, and it was actually that social change and that history which made it possible, I believe, for JFLAG, the Jamaica Forum for Lesbians, Allsexuals, and Gays, to succeed, to come into existence and to succeed, and to have this history that it has now of 13 years of activism in Jamaica. But we really owe that to the gay freedom movement and to Larry's bravery and vision in making this organization happen and the discourse expand, right? And I was thinking about the archives themselves, and one of the things that Larry and I talked about over the years, which was how to get these archives someplace where they would be safe. And we knew that there was a box of boxes, actually, somewhere out there that we didn't know exactly quite how to put our hands on. But I had the good luck through the kindness of JFLAG in, I believe, 2009, to bring back a suitcase, actually, of papers which now are being digitized for the Digital Library of the Caribbean by all of you here, by the folks here at Brooklyn College, supervised by Rosamond King. And so it was very exciting to see all this history which we knew existed, right, this portion of history, and these letters, these newspaper articles, these photographs, and the documentation of what had happened in Jamaica at that time, late 1970s and into the 80s. One of the things that we just talked about, as I said earlier, was the way in which we noticed, Larry and I and other people, the similarity between the headlines in the Jamaican newspapers in the social context in the 1970s and 80s, and then what JFLAG experienced in the 1990s and into the 21st century, in terms of the reactions to discussions of homosexuality and gender difference and bias and so on, and also the ways in which Jamaica actually, we feel, evolved, grew, partly from the exposure to GFM and its steadfast efforts to make visible homosexuality and the political force and import of homosexuality, right? Well, this archive, for me certainly, as somebody who worked in JFLAG and came to understand how important this history was and is, right? These GFM archives are a very moving body of work that really, I think, show these stories and voices that might not have been recorded, might not have been documented, if Larry had not been so meticulous to gather this material together. The publication of the Jamaica Gaily News, as some of you know was a signal moment, right, when the kind of community was formed through this community-produced document, newsletter that came out sometimes a couple of times per month, sometimes once per month, and so on. We have that in the archive as well, and now it's digitized and available to people. The other thing that I was really struck by with the GFM archive that I've seen so far is the way the enormous diversity and what it showed, the heterogeneity of the population in Jamaica, rural and urban, and Christian and non-Christian, and poor and working class and middle class and wealthy, all kinds of different people, different skin colors, different genders, right, and ethnicities in Jamaica, so that GFM, while in some ways based in Kingston at the time, was also reaching out across Jamaica enormously, right? And we see this reflected in the archive. And perhaps it's not entirely coincidental that while GFM was doing this very important work, that also women's voices were beginning to be heard more in the Caribbean and in Jamaica as well, right? And so there is a kind of confluence of effort there. I think that it's interesting to think about when you look at the archive, the whole question of who makes the nation, right? Who actually comprises the nation, and what do they have to say about the nations, particularly, particularly in the context of Jamaica being a fairly new, if you will, sovereign nation. 1962 independence comes to Jamaica, and then in 1978, so we have GFM, right, making up this nation, yeah? And really, I think that if you get to see the archives, review them, please do visit the Digital Library of the Caribbean site and look at the archives, and you'll see how magnificent this work is and how completely groundbreaking, it's a cliched word, but really groundbreaking this work is, and how powerful the work was of these activists, right, that makes possible the JFLAG of today, the Jamaica of today, and has an impact throughout the Caribbean, whether we know it or not, what GFM did, reflected in these archives. We believe, I think, certainly, Larry has said this in the past, I think that GFM was perhaps the first Anglophone, at least Anglophone Caribbean, LGBT or gay, whatever, organization, right? And so it's a very powerful historical moment. So I'm very proud to have been able to bring these archives back to us here and to the States. I'm very happy that Rosamond has been able to, and her graduate student have been able to do this work. And thank you for letting me talk tonight, participating. That's it.
Technology, so that was Vidya and Guyana saying, speak into the microphone and don't move around. So for the future, the rest of the speakers, try to speak into the microphone and don't move too much. Thank you so much, Thomas. And Larry Chang is our next speaker, who in some ways is the architect of the archive, as one of the main founders of the Jamaica Gay Freedom Movement, as well as the person who had the foresight to keep the documents and to get them somewhere where they could be taken care of. Larry Chang was born in Jamaica of Hakka Chinese immigrant parents. He is a founding member of the Jamaica Forum for Lesbians, Bisexuals, and Gays, JFLAG, having previously organized the Jamaica Gay Freedom Movement in 1978 in a fiercely hostile climate. He held the position of General Secretary and was publisher and editor of the newsletter, the Jamaica Gaily News, which is also mentioned, some of you may have read Patricia Powell's A Small Gathering of Bones. It's mentioned in there. It's actually a real newsletter. She didn't invent it. Larry was a leader and active participant of the social justice community, and he came to the US as an asylee in 2000 and was granted political asylum in 2004. He currently resides in Washington, D.C., where he continues to educate and work for social justice. He is featured in the documentary Songs of Freedom and has also appeared in Dangerous Living, Coming Out in the Developing World. Larry is also an artist, designer, publisher, and life counselor, author of Wisdom for the Soul, 5 Millennia of Prescriptions for Spiritual Healing, and Wisdom for the Soul of Black Hole. Larry.
Let me make sure that this is being heard. Otherwise, I'm wasting my time. And can you all see me? Okay, I think so. Well, thank you very much for this privilege and honor for being here. And thank you so much, Rosamond and team for organizing this absolutely amazing and historic occasion. This is something that I dreamed of, but never actually believed that I would live to see. Yeah? Because when I was doing my work with GFM and the Jamaica Gaily News, it was always in the back of my mind that I wasn't doing this just for me and for the people then, but that the work that we were doing was being done for posterity. Yeah? So that kind of perspective has always been there, in my mind at least. But then I never did dream that I would actually live to see it happen. And here we are. Now, isn't that absolutely amazing? Well, obviously, it won't be as amazing to you as it is to me because you weren't there. But I'm just sharing with you my just uncontrollable joy and pride in being able to stand here today and to take part in this occasion. Yeah? Of course, I wasn't the only one involved, and there are many people who played a major role in the development and the activities of gay activism in Jamaica. But with regard to the archives, there are two people that I would like to recognize. They're actually both Americans, they're not Jamaicans, and they both came to Jamaica as Peace Corps volunteers. One is Emily Paul, and the other one is Anthony Huron, who both came as Peace Corps volunteers, got involved in GFM/JFLAG, and from day one, they were also very cognizant of the need to preserve and to document as many materials as we could get. And so I believe that the survival of these collections is due in large part to their diligence, because while they were in the JFLAG office, I know that they did everything they could to safeguard these papers. However, I do have to make one correction to Thomas's earlier statement that the Gaily News are also available in the archives. They are not. There are a few copies there, but the entire collection has gone missing. It cannot be found in JFLAG's offices, despite many attempts, both on Thomas's part as well as on Dane Lewis's part, to locate them. But we as Jamaicans do not respect the written word, and therefore it is not surprising that these papers would have gone missing. My hope is that they will turn up one day. I think it is a shame that anyone who needs to do research in Jamaica Gaily News, they have to go to Toronto or they have to go to Amsterdam in order to access these materials. These materials should be in Kingston, Jamaica, or on these digital archives. So my fervent hope is that one day they will be found and restored. I also want to give a great vote of thanks to Thomas Glave, who has single-handedly seen this project through. As much as I would have liked to have done, my wings are clipped. I cannot go and come as I would like. So therefore, Thomas is the one that has been the go-between, the messenger, the bad boy, you know, everything. Thomas has done the physical grunge work of actually going and foraging in JFLAG's offices, trying to locate collections, and actually having found them, having brought them back, and then arranged for them to be deposited with the Schomburg collection. So a great deal of thanks is due to Thomas, without whom none of this would have been possible. I think I've said basically all that I can't think of saying right now. I'll be happy to answer questions later or talk to anybody else, you know, afterwards. But I really do want to stress the great feeling of joy and pride, you know, for sharing this moment with you. Thank you.
I just want to echo Larry's excitement, because I've been working on this for quite some time, and a lot of people probably have no idea how excited we all are. Okay, there we go. Oh. Just want to make sure we're all connected. So we're incredibly excited, and so now we're at the point where you're going to, the moment you've all been waiting for, where you're actually going to get to see some of these archives that have been uploaded online. And we asked everybody to speak relatively, to give relatively short comments so that we can have a lot of time for question and answer afterwards. So all of the things that you want to know, please think of those, and we'll be happy to have a discussion after that. So Vidya, we're gonna go to you and let you do the virtual tour. Those are guidance birds. Those guidance birds.
I guess so.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry, I have to hold the webcam close to my mouth. So good evening, everyone. And I'm going to do some technology. I have to share my desktop, so I'll be switching off the video. Can you hear me clearly, right?
Yes.
Right. Okay, so I'm going to share my desktop, and just 1 second while I do that.
So Stephanie scanned everything in Brooklyn, emailed it to Vidya, and he uploaded it to the Digital Library of the Caribbean.
Okay, so can you see the desktop here?
Yes.
I have the,
Yes.
right. So this is the website. I should first of all say that it was an honor to work on this collection. Extremely interesting to browse through the papers. I'd like to thank Mr. Chang and all of the people who kept this alive. I think younger people like myself who are sustaining that legacy have had a lot to learn and be inspired by arts. The handwritten notes especially were wonderful. The Digital Library of the Caribbean has an open collection, and we have a chip with them. And in addition to the International Resource Network open collection, we created a special collection for the gay freedom movement. There are about 300 pieces which Stephanie scanned in, and we have to organize them into about, they're organized into about 78 pieces, because they cover a range of items. The items include some of the work related to the Jamaica Gaily news. And I've just come up here to the interface here, which shows how we can view it. I'll actually switch to this thumbnail view because it's pretty, and that shows the range of items that are here. On the subject topic, I tried to put some categories related to items. So we should first look at what's available here for the Jamaica Gaily news. And as Larry mentioned, some of the points, some of the items are missing. A large part of the items are missing, but we were able to find the issue number 57, which is a complete issue, which we have uploaded. I'll just bring that up. And there are the 8 pages here for those who want to see that. The other the important items that we can cut. This pencil sketch perhaps shows sorry, I opened the wrong one. The pencil sketches and the work that is done behind the scenes that Jamaica Gaily is important. And there are many handwritten notes that we think that will help to, Larry said that we were not there, but I think as we browse through these, we'll get a sense of the work that is required to produce the Jamaica Gaily done. And the difficulties, for example, the themes, conversations with the National Library about the car, if one goes through that, get a sense of some of the difficulties that were faced in trying to do this. An important part of this digital archive are the notes that were kept, just go back, related to the participation in the ITA conference in Turin in 1981. And Larry kept extremely copious notes and all of the documents related to the workshop that were attended and reflection on those workshops. One of the important pieces that we found, and one that we're going to be using for the recognition, is this position paper which was written in 1981 and is prepared for the conference. And the entire paper reflects the research that was available at the time and the work that Larry did to ensure that to get views on what was happening to gay and lesbian people who are gays in Jamaica at the time. The archive also includes a lot of the external documents that were related to work to the relationship with agencies in North America and Europe. So it relates to a lot of the things like the helplines that were available. There are brochures and flyers from different organizations in the Americas. And for all we know, these brochures and flyers probably don't exist anywhere else. So we ought to be grateful to the people who kept these archives. So in the heading, I have brochure, other agencies. There are at least 15 brochures which relate to things not only income outside the nation. One of the, as we mentioned this, there are many, we uploaded a lot of the manuscripts, things that were in handwriting, because we thought that those were important to understand what was going on in the GFL at the time. The handwriting is legible. There are some pieces that we did not upload because they had names of persons, and we felt that those not be good. There is one item here which relates to the GFL correspondence. Just call it again, this was related to an interesting piece, which again, we're not sure if this piece exists in any other archive. The archive is not exhaustive because our plan is to do some optical recognition so that some of the content could be used in other work, in other research. One, we have thought of looking for example like the position paper. We are working on doing that, and items such as the Constitution. If I can just go back to that. The Constitution and the brochure that is used, those items we would like to have the text available so that people could use them. It requires a little bit of work because of the quality of the text. This is the beautiful brochure that gives the history and has quotation from Oscar Wilde and Ursula in front. And this gives the history of the GFL. And think sets the example for a lot of us who are movements today. We are now producing materials like this, so we can understand how to do this. The constitution of the JFLAG is also an important piece of this archive to understand what the aims and objectives were in those days. We've also had pieces like the bank book, the bonus class book, show their culture. And this gives an indication of the life of the JFLAG. We hope that you get a chance to browse through the archive. If you have additional pieces that you would like to add, anyone who this has copies of items which are related, whether they're editions of the Gaily news or any other item, please feel free to scan them or to photocopy them. We can do our best to upload them to the archive. So back over to you now, Rosemary.
Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah, you want to switch it back to me. Okay, so I think I'm back. Thank you so much. And the Digital Library of the Caribbean, for people who aren't familiar with it, is a wonderful organization. You don't have to register to use it. You don't have to give them your personal information. You just go on the website, DLOG, and you can access this information. They do wonderful work throughout the Caribbean. They digitized much of the National Library in Haiti before the earthquake. So when we approached them, they were extremely excited to work with us and set up a separate channel. So we're very, and they mailed a scanner to Guyana. So we're very grateful to Digital Library of the Caribbean. Our next speaker is Angelique Nixon. And Angelique is my co-chair for the Caribbean region of the IRN. She's a Bahamian writer, cultural critic, teacher, community worker, and poet. She just finished 2 years as an assistant professor in residence at the University of Connecticut, and she's going to join the faculty at Susquehanna University this August as an assistant professor of English in the fields of Caribbean and post-colonial studies, as well as gender and sexuality studies. She's been working with the IRN since its development in 2008. She saw me speak about the IRN somewhere, I can't remember where right now, and came up to me afterwards and said, "This sounds really fabulous, I would love to work with you on this." And I laughed. I said, "Yeah, be careful what you ask for, because if you want to work, I have work." She said, "No, I'm serious." And ever since then, she's been my sister in arms. I'm really appreciative to her. She did a lot of the unseen work on this and for everything that goes into the Caribbean IRN. So I appreciate all the work that you've done, and I'll hand my over to you.
Thank you. So I think we got a message that some folks in the region could not hear video, and we apologize about that. So that means you get to explore the archive and check it out, and this will be hopefully posted and available so folks can actually watch parts of it again. So I think we'll get that together. It's so cold in here. My Bahamian blood can't take it. So I've been asked to talk a little bit about the importance of preserving these stories and thinking about how this digital archive presents an opportunity for us to think about how do we document and preserve our stories? How do we maintain a certain level of ownership even over our stories, right? As Larry Chang mentioned, the Gaily News is in the full spectrum of that collection is in Toronto and in Amsterdam, right? And so this opportunity, when Rosamond and I and Thomas discovered this box and we were in Jamaica doing an event, it was the most exciting moment to think, oh, we can do something here and contribute to the histories that are lost, histories and histories that are lost. And so I want to just say a couple of things about the complexity of the archive. When you have an opportunity to go and look and explore it for yourself, you'll notice how much it reveals the challenges and successes of the movement during the 1970s and 1980s in Jamaica, as Larry Chang and Thomas Gaily discussed earlier. And most importantly, I think it also offers a glimpse at the lived experiences of sexual minorities at that moment in the region. And so we get as a really complicated picture of their experiences and revealing the activity, right? And the bravery of folks who organized, who dared to organize and be visible at a moment that we sort of think of as not being a moment where we could be visible, right? And so the preservation of these stories is also allows us to think about this present moment where we have a picture, particularly of Jamaica, of intense homophobia and how it is often described as the most homophobic place on earth. And the way that dance hall particularly is scapegoated as the kind of the vector or the cause, when of course it's a symptom, right? And so one of the things that I think this archive allows us to think about is really making a more complicated picture of what the region looked like in the 1970s and 1980s, and helping us to think about, well, what happened in the 1990s and into now that has created certain changes, and the fact that it is actually more complex than the outside the region, the way that a lot of times the region is painted from the outside. So I wanted us to sort of think about that, and one of the projects that the Caribbean IRN is working on is thinking about how do we theorize and talk about homophobias in the region, as opposed to it only looking one particular way, right? And given that we see stories emerging, short films and full-length narrative films coming out of the region, particularly the Bahamian film Children of God, directed by Kareem Mortimer, which is the first Caribbean film to deal explicitly with homophobia and religion in the Bahamas. And we also have, and so we're at an important moment of thinking about how do we transform the discourse and the stories that exist outside of the region, right? And so I highly suggest for you to check out that film. And there's also another film, Rain, also a Bahamian film, full-length feature narrative film that has, it's a minor story in the film, but it has 2 lesbian characters. So, and Children of God is a storyline of 2 gay men in the Bahamas. And so we have these stories emerging. And one of the things that I think these moments help us to think about is that we must tell our stories. We must do this through the preservation of our histories and herstories and the activism in the region, to know that yes, there's activism happening in the region back in the 60s and 70s and 80s and into today, which we'll talk a little bit about later. And a side note, a few of us were just in Curacao and we went to the Pink House in Curacao, and there's been LGBT organizing since the 60s, and we saw documents, and we're hoping to get our hands on those too, to digitize them and offer them as a part of our general collection of organizing and flyers and documentation of all kinds of meetings and parties and gatherings and movement and work. So this is just a part of that important work, I think. Then doing that, today we're celebrating the Jamaica Gay Freedom Movement, recognizing and honoring all those who made it possible, and making that link that Thomas talked about between Gay Freedom Movement and JFLAG and current organizing. And these stories confirm that we're here, and we have been here as Caribbean sexual minorities, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, gender non-conforming, and all of the other ways that we choose to define ourselves or not define ourselves as well. And when we think about that, we need more stories. We need more short films, we need novels, we need plays, we need music, and more feature films, right, written by Caribbean people to represent the complexity of our lives. And so, again, I think this work has already been started, and so I hope that this archive allows for that work to continue, and also it offers a resource for filmmakers and other cultural producers who want to write that novel, who want to make that song, who want to honor this history and herstory. And I think one of the things we wanted to do today to kind of illustrate one of the things that is happening. There's a short film by Trinidadian filmmaker Cynthia Cheeseman called Sisters Without Misters, made in Trinidad. And we want to screen that. It's a short 12-minute film. We want to screen that to talk about and offer the possibility of documentary filmmaking as a way to think about how do we record oral histories, not just through this archive that we are building and we have created and collected with the gay freedom movement. But now we have other media, right? And so it's an exciting time. And I think technology helps us to advance and have different ways of collecting and sharing our histories and preserving the documenting the lives of sexual minorities in the region. And so now we're going to screen the film. And folks in the region, you are meant to get that link and pull it up and watch it together. And we're going to do that here as well.
Look it up on YouTube.
You can also look it up on YouTube. It is also on the copious flyers that I sent out and emails as well.
So they have a DVD for us, actually.
Oh, they have a DVD for us. Okay, great. So we're gonna pass it on to our tech person here.
And we'll come back on WebEx in about
14 minutes. We'll be back on WebEx in about 14 minutes. Yes, please.
Good so far?
See.
Where do you see yourself in, say, about 3 years from now?
Finishing university and looking to embark on some career. Not too sure where I'm going, but something.
You're coming back to cook? Huh? You're coming back to cook, eh? Never was that? No. Fashion. Okay, hold on, see that? Oh, just all you want to. Stop, look at me go.
Everything. I'd say mostly personality I'm attracted to, but I don't know, women more than men in touch with the emotions, most of them, and soft spoken, some of them.
Not necessarily out of beauty, you know, but it can be anything from maybe the speak to the smile, you know, or some little thing that I did.
I didn't really, actually. Kind of like my friends did that in when I was 11 or 12, so somewhere around there. I really don't know how they noticed, but they kind of started telling me, and I kept denying it because I didn't believe it at that point in time. But about a year after that, I had a crush in school, and after that it kind of took off. Yeah, So,
What kind of things would your friends do?
During the start of the time, that was weird, really. That was the main thing, I was weird. And when I asked them how, it's like, because I don't seem normal, and it has to have if I had a boyfriend, and if I ever liked a boy, and all that kind of stuff, and the answer was no.
When did you first realize that you were attracted to women?
Not till I was about 20, 21 years old, 21.
How was that?
Basically, this chick was sitting on me. And I liked it.
How did you feel like this person hitting on you?
I was scared because it wasn't something I was accustomed to, yet I was excited, you know, because I had actually liked it, you know. Family is a tricky one. Can't really tell most of my family members because I don't want them to get heart attacks. And I kind of want to live in the house for the next few years, so I wouldn't tell them, but my mother knows, and I think my father knows too. Never told him, but I think he does, and my sister does know too. Yeah. Well, my stepmother knows, and there was an incident in Tobago sometime. It kind of blew out of proportion, so it had to do with an next scale, and because of that, everybody found out, and they all assumed that I like girls, but I never confirmed it to him, especially. So I didn't really tell him, but it was easier for me because most people would, you know, because my brother is also gay, and every time that I was actually getting in it, when we were my first girlfriend, somebody outed him, right? So they were more focused on him, but still, you know, they were throwing remarks as to, I hope you're not like that too, because they would see me with this girl all the time, you know. So it went a couple of years, it went on being like that, you know, and eventually, well, I started living with her and stuff. So they kind of realized, it was never really actually spoken out loud to my mom and dad, the brothers and sisters here, you know. And eventually, well, mom would come and try to give me some kind of advice concerning the relationship. And, you know, so I knew that they knew. So it was never, you know, it's still up to now, it's never actually spoken, you know, as a regular conversation. But, you know, we would throw some kind of comic remark at me sometimes, and me and my brother for some stupidness we do, you know. Well, like I said, my friends knew before I did, so yeah, they kind of told me that I was. The first person I came out to was somebody I grew up with in my area, and their reaction was, don't touch them, kind of thing, you know. But now, I think after they went everything, went to study, and I guess they met a lot of gay pluckers there, and came back and everything was fine. Well, really, I see it as I didn't force myself to be attracted to females. And if it's whoever it may be, he higher power, whatever, you know, I don't want it, but it happened, and I'm not going to hide or whatever from it. I'm going to embrace it. Forget people who don't like it. Because you never know, that might happen to them too, and then they wouldn't want people to discriminate them. So they shouldn't discriminate against us, because half of them, a lot of them actually, might do something else. It mightn't be what we do as in being with somebody of the same sex, but it might be just as bad or even worse than what we do. So nobody should discriminate, because everybody has their faults. I grew up as a Catholic, and we were in the Catholic religion, and I still am a Catholic, still practicing Catholic. Right? I don't see no there should be any separation between the religion and being gay. Normal boyfriend, girlfriend when you're younger, just to say that you had a boyfriend, yeah. but nothing serious. The first guy I dated it lasted approximately 3 weeks, and after that, it really wasn't with anybody else, but had a few fellas that liked me, and it didn't matter to me really, so I just acted like I liked them, so because they're really nice people, but that's about it.
Have you ever been with a man?
Yeah.
So if you had to choose, at this point in life, between being with a man and being with a woman, which would you choose?
A woman. For a number of reasons, I enjoy being with women more, and the sex is better. It's a personal decision, and well, it's between you and your partner. If you like sex toys, well, go for it. I don't know, but I'm not really into that, so all natural. Most of them have their own toys, basically, or like you're using it because you require penetration. To me, it doesn't matter who you end up with, because you could have a husband but not be happy at all whatsoever. But because it's the norm, that's what your family might want for you, or your friends might want for you, or whoever might want for you, but you're not really happy. You might be happier with somebody you share common interests with, and it just might happen to be a woman. So I don't see a difference between a man and a woman being together, or a woman and a woman being together, or even a man and a man being together. That is a personal decision, and if you're happy with it, it's all about your happiness, and if you're happy with that, well, you live your life.
For me, being a lesbian, personally, it's not just about people who consider being promiscuous or those who not aware. So you live your life, you know what I mean? As I said, I personally am not a promiscuous person, right? And how I live my life with who I am with and time, to me is a pure and sacred thing.
So part of the reason that we wanted to include the film is because we're focusing and celebrating the archive, but we also wanted to broaden it out to the rest of the region and to have some female voices included as well. And I believe Cynthia Cheeseman is watching via Ustream somewhere in the world, so thank you, Cynthia, for that. And I just want to say to the hubs that if you can't hear, you should chat with Rosamond King Host. That's actually Vidya. It's listed as me, but it's actually Vidya. Because we're going to actually go to Colin Colin, who is Trinidadian, but who is actually in Jamaica right now, and hopefully is up, I believe, at the Kingston hub. And Colin Robinson does community organizing on sexual citizenship. I'm going to introduce Colin, and we might wait 1 minute before we go to him, just to make sure the other hubs are back with us. But Colin Robinson does community organizing on sexual citizenship in Trinidad and Tobago, where he is on the steering committee of CAISO. CAISO is the coalition advocating for inclusion of sexual orientation. And Colin really wants everybody to check out CAISO's blog. He stressed that to me. So the blog is the blog is gspot with 3 T's, g-spott.wordpress.com. I think I got that right, yes?
Almost.
Almost. Okay, well, you can correct me. Yes, I can hear you. You're up. So, and Colin is also on the board of the Caribbean region of the IRN. He's a co-founder of Caribbean Caribbean Pride and a bunch of other wonderful things as well, and is currently an activist in the region. So, it looks like it's loading you right now, Colin. You're not moving.
Am I moving now?
Yes, you are. So go ahead. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. I'm actually joining you from Jamaica, where I'm actually at our regional colloquium on gender, culture, and the law, sharing experiences with folks around how we make changes in culture, how we make changes in the law, and how those two interact. The work that the GFM archive helps us understand as well in a historical perspective. I'm really excited about this project, not only because I want to pay tribute to the hard work my colleagues on the IRN board have done in making it a reality, and Larry's generosity. But I remember when I was a university student from Trinidad, corresponding with the GFM and getting copies of the Gaily News sent to me in the mail. And sort of to be a part of it and actually look and see if those issues I can add to debunk. I wanted to talk a little bit about how organizing in the Caribbean has expanded beyond where we were when GFM formed and was very visible in Jamaica. Not only has organizing in Jamaica had a resurgence, but in many ways Jamaica has dominated imagination of both oppression and resistance in the region, and I wanted to complicate that a little bit by telling you about some of what I know about what's happening more broadly in the region. In almost every territory, there's some form of gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender organizing, whether people organizing separately or people organizing around HIV. Some of it is visible, some of it is underground. We take some examples. There's campus organizing happening here in Jamaica. There's an annual film festival in Guyana. Angelique mentioned the Behavior Film Children of God. It was a major feature at 2 film festivals in the region, mainstream film festivals, and it's now on DVD and on cable, which many of us have US cable channels in the region. So there's a certain way in which organizing and visibility and digital access have expanded. In terms of politics and the state, we've seen state-sponsored activity focused on LGBT issues in places like Cuba, publicly available transgender health care. In terms of lesbianizing, we've seen lesbian leadership in Jamaica at one point, quite visibly, currently more visibly in St. Lucia as well as in Trinidad and Tobago. Grenada, they just opened a multi-purpose rocket space that's got some media attention. And we went to Curacao to operating a counseling center for the past year, and she also mentioned that we have an organizational presence in the decades. There's public litigation. There are now constitutional lawsuits against laws that oppress LGBT people. There's one against the cross-dressing law in Guyana and one against Belize's sodomy laws that are making their way through the courts. There have been public stands for tolerance and against homophobia in Trinidad and Tobago, in Suriname, and in Jamaica. And in addition to some seminal meetings that happened in Curacao and in Jamaica in 1996 and 1997, that laid groundwork for building a regional movement of LGBT people. There are additional regional meetings outside of the HIV meetings that tend to happen. Several of them in the last few years. Transgender people met across the region. There have been meetings focused on human rights advocacy with international bodies. And there was one on sexuality scholarship in Barbados in 2008.